Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline, CBS Sports, NFL senior blogger. He is Will Brinson. And today's theme has been about grifts, and I feel like Brinson really exposed the grift of NFL mock drafts this week by purposely putting out the worst mock draft possible. And congratulations, Will. It worked. Respect to you. Salute, my man.
Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it. You know, this is actually a passion project of mine. I've been I'm kind of kidding. I've been wanting to do this for like five. No, I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding at all. I've been wanting to do it for like 5 years. And what would happen is I would get down to like, I'd be like, I want to do the worst mock ever, but I was like, I want to like, really pour my heart and soul into making sure that I anger every possible fan base. And so it just, when I would get to like 2 weeks before the actual draft, and it would be time to do I would be like, well, I don't want like my last mock to be this troll mock. Mm-hmm. And so this time, now that I'm back to being a senior NFL writer, Joe O, not blogger. Thank you. I've been promoted. I was promoted like a decade ago. No big deal.
I'm sorry. It's a term of endearment.
No, I'm kidding. My boss.
You could be the next commissioner of the Big Ten.
Shout out to Brossum.
No, my boss really did. In lieu of like a pay bump at one point 10 years ago, it was like, you can be a senior NFL blogger. Does that make you happy? I was like, no, it doesn't. He's like, here's some business cards. I was like, you're a real a-hole for doing that to me. He's like, it's not even a real title at the company either, by the way. You're just have business cards that say senior NFL blogger on them now. I was like, thank you, EK. At any rate, I digress. I had been wanting to do it. And so like, now that I'm writing more, it's just part of like what I'm doing at CBS now, which is good. I like to write. It's exciting. But I was like, they're like, we want you to do a mock draft every week. And I was like, man, I've really got a window now to finally fulfill this lifelong dream of trolling every NFL fan base. Well, in this case, like, I think it's like a third or 2/3 of the NFL fan bases, because the Dolphins don't have a pick. Mm-hmm. A bunch of teams traded out their first round picks, et cetera, et cetera. And I just tried to, with each pick, do what I thought would make each fan base the most mad. For instance, the Panthers at number 1. I mean, I don't want to ruin. Is your next question like, how did you get here with the Panthers? Because I don't want it's your show. I don't want to segue for you.
Well, no. I think you could have gone Anthony Richardson, but that might have been too
I started
logical.
with Anthony Richardson,
right? So
no,
I respect what you ended up at.
Yeah. So here's sort of where the thought process in that. And I had Anthony Richardson first overall initially, because I thought about. And I'll give him some free advertising. He's the best State Farm agent in North Carolina. If he operates out of Leland, my good friend Franklin Rouse. If you are in need of insurance of any kind, call Franklin. 1-800-555-DEES.
What kind of grift are you running now? You're running a grift on CBS, and now you're on my freaking show doing free advertising?
Yeah,
what are you doing, Will?
I'm trying to explain the problem. Look, if I'm going to name check Franklin as the Panthers fan, I was trying to anger with Anthony Richardson.
He's a State Farm agent, and then people can Google him. Nobody's going to remember the number.
He commits.
Do you really think that 555 is a real number?
Nobody's going to remember the number.
It's not a real number. I made it up. It's a bit. But Franklin is one of my really good friends. And I knew that my initial thought was, okay, what would Franklin's response be to Anthony Richardson? And I was like, oh yeah, he'd be, because he'd been like, this is ridiculous. Like drafting Anthony Richardson 1 is crazy. And then I started thinking, yes, that's true. It may anger some people, but there are enough people who would be like, Cam 2.0 that like, let's ride.
Ding, 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 ding.
But if you trade two first round picks and 2 second-round picks and DJ Moore to go up and get like the homeless man's Josh Allen from Kentucky at the number 1 overall pick, when he was probably going to be there at 9 anyway, people are going to lose their effing minds. So that's how I ended up coming back and going Will Levis.
No, chef's kiss, man. Chef's kiss on Will Levis. That was the right one. Because like going Stetson Bennett, going Hendon Hooker or something like that.
That would have been ridiculous.
Outlandish.
That's too outlandish. It's too outlandish. But Will Levis is something that you go, wait a minute, is he onto something? Is he being wait a minute? Because there is a Will Levis hive out there.
Well, and that was the thing about this draft too, is like this can't, like, you could easily just slap like 31 random names in here and be like, ha 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 ha, got him. I felt like these needed to be realistic scenarios. Like, for instance, at number 2, the Texans, by all accounts, and we don't know how they feel about CJ Stroud. There's a lot of rumors that actually either Anthony Richardson or Will Levis is their number 2 quarterback behind Bryce Young. You know, you have the connection with D'Amico Ryans, who went to Alabama. You have the connection with Nick Caserio, who worked with Bill Belichick forever, obviously, closely tied with Nick Saban. And so the commonly held belief is that the Texans would love to get Bryce Young at number 2. They're hoping the Panthers go CJ Stroud or Will Levis or Anthony Richardson, and then they'll get Bryce Young. So in this particular instance, we have the Panthers go Will Levis, and then the Texans, as part of the troll job, don't even take Bryce Young, even though he's there. So they go CJ Stroud. So they got Bryce Young. He falls in their laps, and they still don't take him. And then
like something the Texans might actually do.
This is
though.
true. This is the team that could have had the overall number 1 pick in the draft, but didn't. Swerve.
Right.
So,
Lovie Smith. Yeah, Lovie Smith got him. If you ever want to, my favorite Texan story, by the way, is if you go and search Cal McNair, Sage Rosenfels. There's a story about how Sage Rosenfels is he told the story. He's walking past David Carr way back in the day. He's like, have you met the owner's son, Cal? He's like the VP of something, like VP of football, something or another. He's like, no. And Sage is like, no, I haven't met him. He's like, I just met him. I went in his office. It's like a beanbag chair and a PlayStation. And it's like Cal McNair's just he's like 40-year-old Cal McNair's just sitting in there playing Grand Theft Auto. Like Madden, and then he's like, yeah, I guess I'll run this place someday. and so sure, CJ Stroud is definitely on the table. The Bryce Young thing at 3 with the Cardinals, essentially this was derived from a miscalculation by our social media team on an Instagram post where they put they had Anthony Richardson going 3 to the Cardinals. They forgot to include my mock trade of the Titans going up to 3, and people lost their minds. The Cardinals could draft a quarterback. I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, probably not, but
maybe not. But
Kyler Murray's hurt in stinks and trades. So why not trade Kyler Murray?
Will Brinson, CBS Sports, joining us here on the OG alongside Joe Giglio. I'm Joe Ovias, and he's put out, arguably and intentionally, the worst mock draft.
We're the greatest.
Come up with. So here's
mocking the mockers.
And Joe and I have been goofing on this, and I liken mock drafts to fan fiction, right? Like these are things that you can be into whatever it is that you're into, and you can go to a Tumblr page and read all sorts of shipping that takes place between characters and whatnot. Will's looking at me like I got 8 heads. I'm trying to put it on.
It seems like there was a little bit of a La Reveal Magnifico on your part, that you're doing some tumbling and some fan fiction.
I mean, look, am I above going to some websites for these things? No, I'm not. None of us are. This would be, I'm trying to think the equivalent of, it'd be like fish fan fiction. Like, well, actually, you know what it is? You being the fish guy, you start obsessing over playlists. And you're like, well, the next show I'm going to, man, if they start with these 3 tracks, it would be like the most ideal thing ever. And if they close the set and then do the encore with this, wouldn't that be amazing?
That one might have hit Will a little.
Oh no, Will's.
You've obviously never seen my numerology tweet about Mike Gordon's birthday show, where I was like,
see, there you go. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. So everybody has a thing where they will absolutely deep dive and convince themselves, well, when I go to the show, it's going to be like this. You're doing the exact same thing with the NFL, which gets to the overall big picture. You're doing this on purpose. So last week, most mock drafts had CJ Stroud number 1. You did have a couple of Bryce Youngs in there, et cetera, right? But then all of a sudden, they all started to come together. It starts with a Peter King story, and then you've got Mel Kiper, and then you got Bruce Felt. I mean, everybody starts to then coalesce around that one pick. So why does that happen, even though we still got 2 weeks to go?
Well, a couple of things. One, I mean, last year, for instance, I don't know if, I don't want me to brag here, but
go ahead.
By all means.
Well, I'm not going to.
Floor's yours.
No, I'm not going to.
Just don't give out any free State Farm advertising, but floor is yours.
FranklinRouse.com. I can't wait till Franklin texts me. He's like, why am I getting these texts about you talking about me on 999 in Raleigh? What are you doing again? No, I mean, I would say this, here's the best example of all this.
Okay.
2018. Around this time in 2018, so Bryce Young's minus 300 in the betting markets. CJ Stroud's now plus 200. As of Monday, CJ Stroud was minus 200. Bryce Young was plus 200. Right? These are These betting markets for the NFL draft are fully reactionary. That is all they are. Do not read into them as if they know what is happening. They are reacting to rumors, to speculation, to big bets being placed. And Bryce Young has gotten a lot of action because there's a lot of information being leaked out that he's going to be the number one pick. And by all accounts, the Panthers are picking between Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud because they want a guy who's more polished, ready to play right away. It makes sense, especially when you look at –
makes total sense.
Well, you add Hayden Hurst, you add Adam Thielen, you have the 5 guys up front protecting him, coming back. You have David Tepper, wildly impatient. Needs to win now. Like winning in 2023 is paramount for the Panthers. Now, having said that, the Cleveland Browns in 2018, Josh Allen was like minus 150, and Sam Darnold was like plus 110 to go first overall. Mm-hmm. And on the morning of the draft, we got a very Woj-bomb tweet from Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport each. And it sounded like this. It's like, while much of the speculation is centered around Josh Allen and Sam Darnold as the number 1 overall pick, according to sources, the Browns have focused their interest on Baker Mayfield, number 1 overall. And then if you looked at the market, he was like anywhere between 8-1 to 20-1 to go first overall the morning of the draft. And by 10 a.m., that market had completely flipped, and Baker was like minus 500. You just couldn't bet it anymore. Now, the difference between 2018 and 2023, besides being 5 years, is that the markets have really tightened up to the point where if that tweet comes out, that entire market is going to come off the board immediately because everyone is going to react to that. And so, like, I think it's worth noting that you have a situation with, like, Will Levis where do we think he's going number 1 overall or Anthony Richardson? No, we don't. But if you see that tweet on Thursday morning, we're 2 weeks away from the draft. Anything can happen. On Monday, we're going to see something in Peter King's column or Albert Breer's column, and those are the two that really move the markets more than anything. Sure. Peter King's going to probably drop his mock draft this Monday because he usually does it, I think, like a week and a half before the draft. Probably wouldn't do it the week of the draft. Maybe either this Monday or next Monday. And whoever he has number 1 is going to be the guy where the markets flood that way. If he's like, I think it's C.J. Stroud now. I've heard it's Bryce Young. It could be either way. Like you saw this with Trayvon Walker last year. And it's like there's 2 weeks before the draft, there is way too much movement for anything to be concrete is the larger point of this. There is going to be something that changes. It may not be with number 1. I still think that David Tepper, do we believe that David Tepper, all right, let's say, Joe, you were like, we're getting a new car. Really quick, I'll make this quick.
Sure.
You're like, we're getting a new car.
Yeah.
And your wife is like, you and your wife, very healthy relationship, understanding you know how to like negotiate with each other in a calm and peaceful way. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm trying to help you look good.
Yeah, thanks.
And you're like, we're getting a new car, and she's like, cool. You pick what car it is, and you're like, she's like, you have the final say of what car it is, and you're like, sweet. So you go out and you're like, I'm getting this Nissan Leaf or whatever the hell whatever cool hipster car you want to get, and you tell her that, and she says, no, we're getting the Honda Accord. And you're like, well, you said I had final choice. And she's like, you do have final choice, but we're getting the Honda. You're Frank Reich and she's David Tepper. Okay. Like David Tepper's like, yeah, Frank, you've got final say. And he's like, I want Anthony Richardson. He's like, that's cool. I want CJ Stroud. He's like, well, but I thought, he's like, yeah, you got final say, but I want CJ Stroud. So you tell me, what are we getting? And you're like, and you being Frank Reich, you're like, you know what, Dave? We are getting the Honda. That is what we're getting. That's my final decision is that we're getting the Honda. That's how this is working with the Panthers. And like, I'm not even being like, it sounds kind of like I'm being flippant about it.
No, it's
actually one of your better analogies.
It's actually one of your. It only took 17 minutes to get there.
But
now I know why you're good at podcasting because podcasting is filling up 2 hours.
What I'm about to be flippant about is the fact that I don't rule out David Tepper's wife having some influence over this either.
It finally took you 17 minutes and 30 seconds to get to the heart of it.
She's been a credentialed media member at every pro. She's been a credentialed with the Panthers, listed credentials for every pro day of these quarterbacks.
So you finally see it because I've been screaming this the last couple of weeks. You can bring 20 different people to all of these events that take place with the quarterbacks. You can have 30 people at dinner, yada, yada, yada. Every single one of these stories starts with and ends with David and Nicole Tepper. It does not matter what Scott Fitterer thinks. It does not matter what Frank Reich likes in a quarterback. These people are obsessed with getting the outlier to prove everybody wrong, and they're going Bryce Young, and it's going to be a mistake. Will Brinson, it's never a mistake when I ask you to come on. We appreciate it, man.
Thrilled to come on.
Will Brinson, CBS Sports.
FranklinRouse.com.
You're about to get banned. We'll talk to you later, man.
See you guys.